I don't distrust you because you're a woman. I distrust you because you're not as smart as you think you are.
Power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It writes letters while you stand there waiting to be noticed. That single line from Tywin Lannister is the most quoted sentence in Game of Thrones, and it is universally misread. People hear it as a father being harsh, as a patriarchal dismissal, as Tywin being cruel because that's what Tywin does. But what if I told you the cruelty isn't in the line? The cruelty is in everything that happens before it. Because Tywin doesn't destroy Cersei with that sentence. He destroys her with a quill, a chair, and 3 minutes of silence. And by the time the words arrive, the verdict has already been delivered. Let's go back to the beginning of this scene. Not the dialogue, the furniture. Cersei walks into Tywin's chambers in the Tower of the Hand, and the first thing you see is Tywin seated behind a desk, writing. He doesn't stand. He doesn't greet her. He doesn't look up. Now, this detail is easy to miss if you're listening to the words, but the scene is already over before either of them speaks. Because Tywin does this exact same thing earlier in the season. Season 3, Episode 1. Tyrion walks into this same room, stands in front of this same desk, and Tywin keeps writing. Doesn't acknowledge him. Lets his son stand there like a servant waiting for permission. Same room, same desk, same quill, same power move. When Tywin finally speaks to Tyrion, he does it without raising his eyes from the page. And look at what that communicates. You are not important enough to interrupt my correspondence. The letter I am writing to a lord I will never meet matters more than the sun standing in front of me. Now he does it again to Cersei, his daughter, the Queen Regent of the Seven Kingdoms. And the message is identical. You are interrupting. That isn't rudeness. That's a dominance framework. Every person who walks into Tywin's office is immediately placed below whatever he was doing before they arrived. Before a single word is exchanged, the hierarchy is established. Tywin is working. You are waiting. The conversation begins on his terms, at his pace, when he decides you've stood there long enough. Look at the way Charles Dance plays this. The pen moves at the same speed before and after Cersei enters. He doesn't pause. He doesn't hesitate. He finishes his sentence on the page, then, and only then, looks up. That's not acting. That's architecture. Now watch Cersei. She enters and immediately starts talking. She asks about Jaime, whether Tywin is doing everything he can to bring him home.
I wanted to make sure we're doing everything we can to get him back.
Seems like a reasonable question. A sister worried about her brother? But Tywin hears something completely different.
When Catelyn Stark took Tyrion prisoner, what did I do in response?
You started a war.
Well, if I would start a war for that lecherous little stump, what do you think I am doing for my eldest son and heir?
Whatever you can.
Whatever I can.
Listen to what just happened. Cersei came in with a concern. Tywin didn't address the concern. He reframed it as an insult to his competence. If I started a war for the son I hate, do you really need to check whether I'm trying for the son I love? And there's a deeper cut hiding inside that line. My oldest son and heir. He says heir. Not your brother. Not our family's pride. Heir. Tywin is telling Cersei, in front of her face, that Jaime is his succession plan. The Kingsguard vows, the renunciation of inheritance, none of that matters. In Tywin's mind, Jaime is still the future of House Lannister, which means Cersei isn't. She's standing in the room, and she's already been written out of the will. If that just reframed a scene you thought was about Jaime's rescue into a scene about Cersei's erasure, that's exactly the moment people hit like. Not because I asked, but because something shifted. Hi, I'm Nick, you're watching Scenic Cults, and we're just getting started. Now comes the most important moment in the scene. Not the famous line, not the insult. This.
Did it ever occur to you that I might be the one who deserves your confidence and your trust? Not your sons, not Jaime or Tyrion, but me.
Cersei makes her play. This is Cersei at her most vulnerable. Not performing, not scheming, asking. She's a woman in her 30s, standing in front of her father saying, "See me. I'm the one who listened. I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who cared about your lectures on family and legacy, while Jaime played soldier and Tyrion chased whores.
Years and years of lectures on family and legacy. Did it ever occur to you that your daughter might be the only one listening to them, living by them? That she might have the most to contribute to your legacy? That you love so much more than your actual children?
That last line, your legacy that you love so much more than your actual children. That's not a political maneuver, that's a wound talking. Cersei is telling her father, you love the idea of House Lannister more than you love us, more than you love me. And she's right. Now, watch Lena Headey's delivery. She's not angry, she's almost laughing. That half chuckle she gives when she says,
the same lecture really, just with tiny tedious variations.
She's trying to be casual about a pain she's carried for 30 years. She's presenting it like a joke because presenting it like a wound would mean admitting she's still waiting for his approval. She is. And Tywin knows it. Here's where Tywin reveals himself as the most dangerous man in the Seven Kingdoms. Not through threats, through 2 words. Cersei finishes her speech. She's asked for recognition. She's laid out her case, that she's the loyal one, the present one, the one who actually absorbed his teachings. She's vulnerable. She's open. And Tywin says,
All right. Contribute.
2 words. And they're devastating. Because contribute is not an invitation. It's a test. And Cersei doesn't realize she's being tested. She thinks she's being heard. She thinks her speech worked. She thinks the door just opened. It didn't. Tywin opened a trapdoor. He's saying, you want to prove you belong in this room? Fine. Show me what you've got. Right now. No preparation, no rehearsal. Prove it. And Cersei walks straight into it.
The Tyrells are a problem.
That's her contribution. The Tyrells are a problem. And the moment she says it, you can see it on Charles Dance's face. He doesn't react with anger. He doesn't react with disappointment. He reacts with confirmation. He already knew. He already knew what she'd say, because he already knew what she was. The test wasn't to discover whether Cersei was capable. The test was to let her prove, in her own words, on her own terms, that she wasn't. That's not a father evaluating a child. That's a strategist closing a file.
The Tyrells helped us defeat Stannis Baratheon. The Tyrells saved your life, your children's lives.
Listen to how Tywin dismantles her. He doesn't argue. He states facts. The Tyrells saved you. The Tyrells saved your children. You are standing here because of the family you want me to treat as enemies. And then the knife goes deeper.
Margaery has her claws in Joffrey. She knows how to manipulate him.
Good. I wish you knew how to manipulate him.
Stop. Rewind that. Cersei tells Tywin that Margaery is manipulating Joffrey. She presents this as a threat, as evidence of Tyrell scheming, as proof that the enemy is inside the gates. And Tywin's response is, I wish you could do what she's doing. He's not dismissing the manipulation. He's saying the manipulation is the correct move. Margaery is doing what Cersei should have done, what a competent political operator would have done, and Cersei can't even recognize it as statecraft because she's too threatened by it. Cersei sees a rival. Tywin sees a masterclass. And that contrast, that is the entire Lannister tragedy in 2 lines of dialogue. Now comes the line, the one everyone remembers.
I don't distrust you because you're a woman. I distrust you because you're not as smart as you think you are.
Most people hear this as Tywin being sexist, or Tywin being brutally honest, or Tywin putting Cersei in her place. But none of those readings are complete. Because the most devastating word in that sentence isn't woman, or smart. It's think. You're not as smart as you think you are. Tywin isn't saying she's stupid. A stupid person he could work with. He could hand her instructions and expect obedience. What he's saying is far worse. She has an incorrect model of her own capabilities. She believes she's operating at a level she hasn't reached. And because she believes it, she can't be corrected. Because in her mind, there's nothing to correct. That is a clinical diagnosis, not a father's frustration. He's identifying a person who is permanently unreachable by feedback. Someone whose self-image is so inflated that every failure gets reprocessed as someone else's fault. Every success gets magnified into genius. and every piece of honest criticism gets dismissed as jealousy or sexism. He's not insulting her intelligence. He's saying her intelligence doesn't matter, because whatever she has, she'll always believe she has more. And then comes the proof.
You've allowed that boy to ride roughshod over you and everyone else in this city.
This is the evidence attached to the verdict. Joffrey, the king she raised, the monster she armed with a crown. She can't control him. She never could. She put the most volatile, sadistic teenager in Westeros on the Iron Throne, and then stood by while he executed Ned Stark, brutalized Sansa, and destabilized every alliance the Lannisters had built. And now Margaery Tyrell, a woman Cersei considers her inferior, walks in and handles Joffrey in a single afternoon, gets him to wave at the commoners, gets him to smile, gets the crowd chanting his name. Cersei watched that happen earlier in this same episode. She stood in the Sept of Baelor with Olenna Tyrell and watched Margaery lead Joffrey outside to greet the crowd. And the people loved him. For the first time in the entire series, the people of King's Landing loved their king. Cersei didn't make that happen. Cersei couldn't make that happen. Margaery did it in minutes. That's what Tywin means by roughshod. Not that Joffrey is out of control, that Cersei's inability to control him has been the single greatest threat to Lannister stability, and she doesn't even know it. But Cersei does something extraordinary at the end of this scene, something that reveals she understood exactly none of what just happened.
Perhaps you should try stopping him from doing what he likes.
She fires back. She challenges Tywin. You think it's so easy? You try. And on the surface, it sounds like a decent counter, like she's calling his bluff, like she's saying, you criticize me from your desk, but you've never had to handle him day to day. But that line is actually her final surrender, because she's not defending her record. She's not saying, I did control him, or here's what I tried. She's saying, he's uncontrollable. She's admitting, without realizing it, that Joffrey defeated her. She's handing Tywin the evidence he needs and framing it as a challenge. And Tywin's response is the coldest 2 words in the entire series.
I will.
Not, I'll try. Not, we'll see. Not a lecture. Not an argument. I will. He says it the way a surgeon says, I'll take it from here. Complete, absolute certainty. And the camera holds on his face for a beat longer than it needs to. Charles Dance doesn't blink, doesn't shift, doesn't soften. And he's right. 6 episodes later, he proves it. Season 3, Episode 10. Joffrey screams,
I am the king!
At the small council table. Tywin doesn't raise his voice. He tells Joffrey that any man who must say he is the king is no true king. And then he sends the king of Westeros to bed. No guards, no threats, no wildfire. Just a grandfather looking at a tantrum and ending it with a sentence. That is what Cersei could never do. Not because she's a woman, because she never understood that real power doesn't need volume. Here's what breaks me about this scene. Cersei is right about one thing. She is the only child who listened to Tywin's lectures. Jaime didn't care. He wanted to swing a sword. Tyrion was too busy surviving his father's contempt to sit through a lesson. Cersei genuinely memorized the curriculum. Family, legacy, a dynasty that lasts 1,000 years. She absorbed every word. She just couldn't absorb the method. Because Tywin's power was never in his words. It was in the quill, in the silence, in the letter he was writing when she walked in the 30 seconds he made her wait before he looked up, in the absolute stillness of a man who knows that the most terrifying thing you can do to someone who's desperate for your attention is simply not give it. Cersei memorized the speech. Tywin lived the silence. And that gap between hearing the lesson and understanding the lesson is the entire distance between a queen who burned a kingdom and a lord who built one. She studied him for decades. She quoted him, mimicked his frown, borrowed his cruelty, invoked his name in every room she entered. And in this one scene, 3 minutes, 1 desk, 1 quill, he glanced up, asked her to contribute, watched her fail, and closed the book. She never got another chance. So here's what I want to know, and I want a real answer in the comments. Was Tywin right to write her off? Or did he create the very failure he diagnosed by never once teaching her how to do what he did? Because he told her she couldn't control Joffrey. He told her she wasn't smart enough. But in 30 years, across thousands of lectures on legacy, did he ever once sit her down and say, "Here's how"? Did he ever teach her the quill trick? The silence? The patience? Or did he just expect her to absorb it by proximity, and then punish her when she didn't? I don't think there's a clean answer, and I think that's the point. You made it to the end. That already separates you from most viewers, so I'm not going to insult you by begging for a subscribe. But if this video cracked open a scene you thought you already understood, then this channel is your channel. We're building an empire of people who see what the camera doesn't show. And if you're still here, you're already one of us. You know what to do. Tywin told Cersei she wasn't smart enough. He closed the book on her in 3 minutes. But he never asked the harder question. What happens when you write off everyone? Because 2 episodes later, at that same small council table, Tywin sits at the head and controls everything. He controls Joffrey. He controls the Tyrells. He controls the crown. He looks invincible. But he'd already lost. He just didn't know it yet. And the way that unravels, the war Tywin thought he'd won but had already secretly lost, is right here. See you there. Until then, stay cult.